Convention for 10 years, believe it or not, but I know some very familiar faces here. Some of you who've been here since I first started doing this 25 years ago. So hopefully, I haven't forgotten how it works, we'll give it a go. I couldn't resist the opportunity to introduce you to a chap who's played an amazing part in the British film and television industry over the last 50-odd years. He's one of Britain's top stuntmen who's appeared in so many things you wouldn't believe. We'll be talking about quite a lot of them tomorrow, but for now, you'll have seen him on screen as Simon Templar in The Saint, and as Jason King, and John Steed, and James Bond, and Superman. But we've invited him here today because he was the stunt double for Martin Landau on Space 1999. Would you please welcome to the stage Paul Weston. I'll just say, I'm going to sit down for this. The last time we did this, we stood up the whole time and my back gives out. Paul might want to sort of leap about a bit sometimes. So you feel free, Paul. Okay. But I'm just going to stay sat.
Go ahead.
Okay, before we get to your career with Jerry and Sylvia, perhaps you could tell us a bit how you got into becoming a stuntman, because in those days, in the 60s, there weren't any stunt schools. You couldn't just go and decide to be a stuntman. How did that happen?
Well, I was a model. Yes, I was a model. And I had an agent who sent me to understudy Roger Moore on the old Saint series. Roger wanted to direct an episode, and he wanted somebody to play his part with the other actors so that he could look through the camera. So I arrived there on this particular day, never really been in a film studio before, feeling very nervous, but Roger was wonderful. He made me feel really at ease, and he allowed me to carry the script, because I had to do the dialogue with the other actors. Some parts I'd learnt, and he was so wonderful and so great. I remember standing in the middle of the stage on the first day, and I looked around and I said to myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And this is what I've done for the last 50-odd years. Roger was such a pleasant and lovely man, and very giving and very funny, a wicked sense of humour. And I played a part on The Saint, which involved me fighting with a stuntman called Fred Haggerty, and he had to throw my little character. I was like a bit of an extra part on it, but I had to get knocked back through a glass cabinet, which I did, and it was a problem to me. I was quite athletic and agile. And they said, well, you're a good double for a guy on the next episode, would you do his stunt? And I said, yeah, how much? And that's how I got into doing stunts. And I went on from there to do, Jason King and The Avengers. But that was how I got into it. I never intended to be a stuntman. I never intended to be a model. I was an engineer working in a factory in North London, and I thought, I can't do this for the rest of my life. So I knew in those days the Evening Standard had 2 pages of Jobs International around, I've been in Alaska on the pipelines down in South Africa, and I thought, right, what I'm going to do is go home, close my eyes and point down, and whatever my finger lights on is what I'm going to go after. And I pestered them until they say, no, we don't want you, find something else. Then I go back to the paper and do my little bit. And I closed my eyes, pointed down, and the little box said, the London School of Charm requires models, Leicester Square. I thought it's hardly, excuse me, Alaska. But to be true to myself, I had to phone up. And I thought, as soon as they hear my voice, they say no. So I phoned up, hello, darling, I understand you want models. She said, come along. So I thought, she hadn't said no. So I thought, well, a night out in West End, 1961, 62, it was quite swinging at the time. You knew that it was a special place, London. So I went up there and I thought, well, as soon as they see me, they say no. They didn't. They said, join us. And after 3 months course, I became a model, which was something totally out of my... I never knew a model. I never knew anyone in the industry at all. So it was quite a shock for me and my family to think that now I was, in the entertainment business. So yeah, so that's the way I got into modelling, and modelling took me on to stunts, and stunts took me on to, coordinating and second unit directing and acting. So yeah.
Was that catwalk modelling or knitting jumpers?
Bit of both. I was a catwalk, and I was Pearl and Dean. Do you remember the old Pearl and Dean adverts at your local Chinese? It was me. Yeah. All those sorts of things. Yeah, John Temple's, look in the window. The window to watch, that was me.
So from that you got into doing like extras work?
Yes.
And I think the first time we see you in the Saint, you're wearing a lab coat and just basically standing in the background. Yes,
I was an extra, and in those days there wasn't any real organisation for stunts. We had a stunt coordinator, well, he was called an arranger or a ramrod at that time, but anyone could do stunts. There was no organisation. You could be sitting in the dressing room and a guy come in and say, who wants to fall downstairs? And you go, how much? And yeah, you're a good double. So we had no pads. I had no pads. My first pad was a piece of foam back carpet that was cut out to the shape of my back and a piece of string around it. And off I went. Luxury down concrete stairs. Bit of padding. Oh. I don't know, they're born these days.
Now, because you worked to begin with just on the Saint, but then after that you amassed an enormous number of credits because you weren't particularly on one show for the film. It was like come and go, episode to episode, wasn't it?
Yeah, when I just tell you my claims to fame is that I sung with the Beatles, I danced with Charlie Chaplin, I stood up Lauren Bacall. So yes, I was lucky enough to be around at the time in the early 60s and mid 60s where the British film industry was really going somewhere, and Lou Grade was backing the TV industry, so there was lots of TV shows to go on to, and I was lucky enough to be in that mix at that time. So you could go from one, you'd be working on the Saint in the morning and somebody would come in and say, we got a job on the Avengers, who wants to come on the Avengers, as an extra or as a stuntman? As a stuntman you got extra money, so that's why you were trying to be a stuntman. If you were an extra you'd be in the crowd and you'd, as we all did, you queued up for your chit at the end of the day, and you got cash. So when we tried to get some respect as stuntmen in sort of 67, 68, we said, look, we're joined. I was a member of Equity anyway, but all the other guys, most of the other guys weren't. They were in the FAA, which is the Film Artists Association. So we were trying to get some respect. So we said, we're Equity members. We all have to be in Equity. And we will get a contract, and we will get and checks instead of cash. Well, a lot of the older guys just wanted the cash, so they didn't become the stuntmen. They stayed in the crowd. Others of us just took our chances. We weren't going to do any more crowd work because you earn good money in the crowd. You get £3.50 a day, which wasn't bad. But as a stuntman, you got £10 a day. And exploitation sometimes. So that's how we started getting organised. And it wasn't, we did our first book in 67, 68, but it never really took off until Equity recognised us as a group, and that was 1973. So that's how we started in stunts and getting organised, and we got insurance as well, which we never had. Before you were standing on a building about to fall off, and they say, okay, stand by, and the guy rush on, the accountant, has he signed the blood check? And you go, hold it, get him down, he's got to sign the blood check. Well, a blood chip was, you signed away your common law rights. If you killed yourself on it, that was your fault. If you fell on somebody else and you injured them, then you would be sued. So you had no rights at all. And that was called a blood chip. And you had to sign it before they would allow you to do a stunt. But we changed that. We said, no, it's ridiculous. You can't sign away your common law rights. And we were insured through Lloyd's. We started our own insurance, which now Equity have taken over, and all Equity members are on the same insurance. So, yeah.
These guys won't forgive me if I let those three statements pass by that you just said at the beginning there. You sung with the Beatles?
Yes, yes. It was on a film called Help. It was their film Help. And I was an extra in a pub in Fulham. And the guys are supposed to rush in and look around. They're chasing a ferocious tiger that has swallowed Ringo's ring, which is a big ring. It's a good story. So apparently it's in the cellar of the pub. So we were in the pub, and the boys rush in, and they say, where is it? And they lift up this flapping behind the bar, and sure enough, there's this ferocious tiger down there. And Ringo says, the only way we can calm it down is to sing its favourite lullaby. So we all had to learn this lullaby, and we all started singing it. So I'm singing with the Beatles. I thought they were singing a little flat. I didn't say anything, but they certainly weren't singing in the same key as I was. So I sang with the Beatles. And then one afternoon, Peter Sellers turned up, and it was chaos. They hardly did any work. How Richard Lester cut that together, I don't know, because no two lines were the same. They were always looking in different directions. But that was good, so I sang with the Beatles. My other claim to fame is that I danced with Charlie Chaplin. And it was on a film called The Countess from Hong Kong. It was his only film he ever shot in colour. It was the only film he ever shot without using his own money, and it was his last film. It was with Marlon Brando and Sophie Loren. And the story was that Sophie is she's a countess, she's coming from Hong Kong on Queen Mary the old Queen Mary, going to New York, and they fall in love on the dance floor. I was an extra dancing with a lovely girl, dancing around with about 50 other couples on the ballroom. It was shot in Shepton Studios, in the big stage, so it looked like the ballroom of the Queen Mary. So we were dancing around there, and Sophie and Marlon are dancing. And during the rehearsal, the music's going, and we're coming round, and Charlie Chaplin stepped out in front of us. And I thought, hello, he's going to sack me, because I wasn't a very good waltzer. But he put his arms around both of us, and he said, dance with me. And he guided us, and he took us around, and he was so light on his feet. He was 77 at the time. And he danced around, and he took us around. Sophie was smiling. He was such a lovely man. And then as we got round again in front of Marlon and Sophie, he said, and when we get to here, I'm going to bring the camera in past you. Is that okay? I said, yes, it's all right. Yeah, it's fine. But he was such a lovely man. But it wasn't a very happy shoot for Sophie or Marlon, really. Marlon didn't like Charlie Chaplin because he'd written the script, and he was telling Marlon how to say the words of his script, which Marlon didn't like very much. And apparently during one of their love-making scenes, Marlon was laying over the top of Sophie, and he said to her, do you know you've got black hairs up your nostrils? Which didn't go down too well, so they didn't get on too well. As for Sophie Loren, I was doing second unit or direct stunt coordinating on a film in Israel, and I was down by the Dead Sea doing a film called The Beast, and Carrie Fisher was a friend of mine after I did Return of the Jedi. So Carrie phoned me up, and she said, we're coming to Israel. So I said, okay, what are you doing? She said, Death on the Nile with Lauren Bacall. So she said, what we'll do when we get there, if you've got a couple of young guys on yours, we've got some young actresses, let's see if we can meet in Tel Aviv or Jaffa and get them all together. And she said, I'll fix you up a date with Lauren Bacall. I said, right, great. So now I'm on the Dead Sea, which is an hour and a half drive to back to Tel Aviv. And it's a Friday night, so we have arranged it because as soon as it gets dark in Israel, you don't work. So I got an hour and a half from 6 o'clock to get back, get changed, and meet my date with Lauren Bacall. And about 6:30, we're still there, and the director, Kevin Reynolds, I'd done a couple of movies with, said, let's just go through the schedule for next week. Well, it went on and on. I sent my stunt people over to get back to Tel Aviv for the weekend and to meet Kerry. And I was there, and I couldn't get away. As much as I tried to persuade him to let me go, we had a lot to do. So by the time I left the Dead Sea, it was too late, and I got back to Tel Aviv about 11:30, and had to send them a big bouquet of flowers to Carrie and to Lauren Bacall for standing her up. And I would love to have, spent an evening with Lauren Bacall, would have been wonderful. But that's my claim to fame. Sad, but true.
Okay, so we sidetracked a little bit there.
Yes.
Let's get back on track now and go back to, you did Man in a Suitcase.
Yes.
You did Randall and Hopkirk, Deceased.
Yes, both. I was double for Mike Pratt. Yeah, Pratt. And Platt, yes. And I also was a ghost sometimes. And I was a ghost sitting on top of the car going along the embankment, all in white like this, on top of the car. You'd never get away with it today. But I just had a strap under there which I could hold on to if I suddenly went round a corner. But yes, that was. But it was such a cheap series that when if you had a fight, you couldn't fall on the floor because we had no carpets. All it was the floorboards or a piece of hessian. So if we worked out a fight where I needed to get knocked on the floor and do a stomach throw on somebody, we had to go over to the Avengers and borrow a carpet. The Avengers had, good props, good sets, yeah. So we had to borrow stuff if we wanted to do it. And you couldn't, even on the Saint, the only time you had ceilings is that when he walks on and it says Simon Templar, and he goes like that, and you had to pan up, then you put a little bit of ceiling in the corner, because the rest of it was always open, so you got cameras, lights all the way around the gantry. So it's very rare that you had a ceiling. So you couldn't do a low angle shot looking up at somebody, on top of you fighting or whatever, because they had no ceilings. Cheap.
The last time we met, we spoke quite extensively about your work on the Avengers. So let's just talk a little bit about that, because I find it fascinating. I'm sure there's guys in the audience that will. That you were Pat McNee's stunt double.
Yes.
On the final series of the Avengers with Linda Thorson.
Yes.
But you had also been doing stunting on the Dinah Rigg episodes.
Yes,
yeah. Tell us about the title sequence on the Avengers with the champagne.
Oh yes, yeah. If you see you see him pouring out champagne and holding the glasses, that's my hands. Never got repeats for it, and that goes out on everyone all over the world. So it was Diana's stand-in and myself pouring out the champagne and flicking the rose and things. All the close-up stuff we did, and my feet on the table and things like that. But yes, it was lovely to do. I mean, it was great to do, to be part of that. It was a wonderful series. I had best 2 or 3 years of my life being associated with the Avengers. I must have started in the black and white days, which I didn't remember that it was black and white, because I was there with Elizabeth Shepherd.
On the original pilot.
On the original pilot, yes.
Return.
Yeah. So I'd like to see those episodes just to remind myself of what I did on them. But yeah, they were a great series to work on, and such style and class. we would go out on location, and the props would, if we were out in the summer, they would set out a table and chairs, and Patrick, myself, Diana, and Diana's stand-in, we would go out and sit in the field, and the props would bring over champagne and strawberries for breakfast. So we sit out there and, oh, are you ready? Yes, okay. We just one more, wouldn't we? So champagne and strawberries for breakfast was very nice.
A lot of the time on the Avengers, when the cameras go out on location, the actors, Pat Whitney and Diana Rigg, weren't actually there because they preferred to keep them doing the dialogue in the studios. And so they get guys like you dolled up as Steed, and so most of the time on location, if you don't actually see Pat Whitney's face, it's probably you. Yeah,
probably me or one of the other. We had, when I was stunting, there was other guys as doubles, but you can usually tell. I can tell who's doing it most of the time. But in those days, people didn't expect that there was such a thing as a stunt double, so they would shoot really close on me, and people just accepted it. It was, it had to be Steed, because they didn't think that there were stunt doubles or somebody else would take over their place. So yeah, there's one or two episodes where it's really is me or Rocky, or you could tell the stunt doubles. But looking back on it, you can. But in those days, it was just accepted that it was the actor.
And at that time, you were very much part of the, mixing with the people that were involved in making other productions that you weren't necessarily involved in, and you got to know Jerry and Sylvia.
Oh yes, yeah. Because I knew Derek Meddings, I would be to go on the set with Frank Holland was the assistant director on that. Yeah. So I'd go on there and watch Derek doing these little bits and pieces, and then when what came first?
The Protectors.
The Protectors, yeah. When they came up, I think it was Roy Vincenti was a stunt coordinator on it, and I was invited to double for Tony Anholt.
Tony Anholt, yeah.
No, was it on that one? Yes, it was. So that's how I got involved in it, doubling for Tony Anholt. And we just wonderful times with Jerry and Sylvia. It was like a family, and you wouldn't offend Jerry or Sylvia by misbehaving. It was like you just had to behave yourself when they were around. I remember a few years later being at Pinewood having lunch with Sylvie and with Chaz and Dave, and Chaz and Dave they were trying to do a thing for 2000, a record deal that Sylvie was involved in, and I was sitting there, and now I grew up with Chaz and Dave. He lived around he lived around the corner from me, but Chaz used to swear like a trooper. So we're sitting there, and once Chaz starts, I went, Chaz, this is Sylvia Anderson, you can't swear, your brother's Sylvia Anderson. And he said, oh, I'm sorry. She said, no, that's fine, you carry on. But I was quite offended that he was swearing in front of Sylvie, because she was like the queen. She was really special.
You did quite a few of the English shot episodes of The Protectors, but the main one that people will probably have seen you in is in the Malta shoot, where I think there were 4 episodes shot in Malta, but you actually get an on-screen credit for playing Lintar in It Was All Over in Leipzig. And when you watch that episode, if you just look out for the guy in the red shirt, and that's Paul, in the sort of like opening sequences, you shoot a lady on some steps, and then there's a big chase. Robert Vaughan's chasing after you. And we were talking earlier, one of the sort of peculiar things about that sequence is that you're running along a very high parapet and jump down, and there's a huge crowd watching.
Yes, yeah, you couldn't get rid of them. It was on the upper Bracker in Malta, and we were trying to isolate the areas, so that there weren't too many people, but it was packed. And no matter where you put the camera, you know, there was people standing around watching, which was a bit embarrassing. But you know, you try to move the camera fast or let, you know, out of focus in the background. But it was, yes, I'm afraid.
And the other thing about that episode is that you end up shooting yourself.
Yes, yes. I've done that a couple of times, funny enough, in my career. You play one character and they say, okay, that's fine, you get shot, you fall over, you get right. So then, but 3 or 4 days later, they say, okay, we need to shoot you up in the hill, shooting down. Put a moustache on. But I was there, put a moustache on, put a cap on, up you go, bang, ah. So you finish up shooting yourself. Nobody knows today. No one cares. But,
one of the other episodes that you did in Malta was the infamous "It Could Be Practically Anywhere on the Island," directed by Robert Vaughan.
Robert Vaughan, yes.
Yeah.
He's,
how was he to work with?
He was fine. Yeah, he was fine in himself. I mean, he was a nice man, a gentleman, and he wanted to direct that particular episode. But I've got video of Alf Joint doing a fall off a little house, like a little castle, and he falls off, and I'm filming up Alf ready to go. Yeah, action. He goes, boom. In the background, there's Robert Vaughan like that with a paper. Never even looked up. Alf's gone a long time, just out of shot. But he was, he was a nice man. I liked him, and Nari was lovely, and Tony was very. Tony, I was dubbing for Tony one time out in Malta, and we've got to put this jeep over a cliff, and I had to jump out at the last minute before it goes over the cliff. And Rocky Taylor's got to jump in and put the brake on before it goes over. So I leave it as late as I can, but to get the best shot. But Rocky's got to get in after me and stop it before it goes over the cliff. And I come tumbling out and fall out, and I see the jeep going towards the cliff. Rocky's going alongside, pulls up, and he just stopped before he went over the cliff. He got out and he went, "Oh, my legs are gone, my legs are gone." He was like jelly. But it was, we had some good fun out there.
Later on, you also did the Madrid arm of filming as well with Patrick Mower in Picado and Peter Fawn in Quinn.
I can't remember any, just a bit driving, that's all I remember. I will have to go back and look at them. I haven't looked at them for years. And then I think it would, jog my memory on those ones.
Yeah.
But I mean, it was great fun to be in the family out there and working. But I remember going back to Malta, there was one sequence where we're supposed to be kidnapping a president and putting him on a plane. It was in an ambulance, and we've got to put him on the plane, and he's got to be taken away. So Rocky and I are on bikes, and we're to do the kidnapping of this jeep. We've got to come alongside the airport, and as we're getting to the jeep, I laid my bike down. We're throwing canisters of smoke, and I lay my bike down, and as I laid my bike down perfectly, and I was just about to get up, and a guy, one of the spectators ran over and picked me up and said, "You all right?" I said, "Yeah, thank you very much. I did that on purpose, Really? He said, "Are you sure you're all right?" I said, "Yeah." So I had to do it again. So when we get onto the airport, and there's orange smoke everywhere, and we're in there pulling the president out, killing the guys around, and suddenly we're surrounded by security, and we're picked up, lifted up, went to a guys in black suits, guns, everything, off. What's going on? Apparently, the President Mintoff was trying to get out of the country. It was a time where he was blackmailing the British government. He wanted 6 or 7 million to keep the forces there, and we said no, and we were airlifting all stuff from Malta, we're putting on ships, and we were going to finish with Malta. And apparently the people didn't want that to happen, so they were against him, and he was trying to get out of the country. And suddenly this orange smoke went all over the departure lounge, and he thought he was going to be kidnapped. So that's why the security wanted to know why we were there and what we were doing. So yeah, we almost had an international incident just making a film.
So having done The Protectors, did that just naturally lead on to Space 1999?
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose the dubbing for Tony as well. I think it was Alf Jointy was the stunt coordinator on it, and I've worked with Alf over many years. And so yes, I was invited to come along and do it, and I doubled for Tony for quite a few episodes. Well, I was on Breakaway. I was playing a technician.
Yeah.
And also I was out on the surface and getting blown up and things like that. So yeah, I then went on to double for Koenig and become the stunt coordinator when Alf left.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did lots of them and really enjoyed it. Enjoyed the company. Koenig was, such a nice man. Martin was such a nice man. And I was telling a story earlier that I was in LA, I was doing a movie, and I think I was doing a Bond, setting up a Bond, and at 8 o'clock in the morning I'm running down Beverly Drive, just I used to run every morning, and as I'm running along the road I hear, oh, and I thought, someone's having a go at me, and so I'm still running, and he went, Paul, and I turned around, Martin Landau in his car. I said, Martin, he said, get in, Greg. I said, why? He said, get in, I'm going to take you home. I said, all right. He just dropped his daughter off at school. So he drives me back up to his house, lovely house, and we went in, and it's a staircase either side going up into a balcony, and he shouted out, Barbara, get up, we got visitors. So he said, oh, who is it? So he said, come down, it's a surprise. So she walks out onto the balcony and she went, oh my God, Paul, and I've got no makeup on. But she was lovely. So I had breakfast with them, and it was lovely to see them after the period on the movie. But it was a great movie, a great series to work on as a stunt double, as a coordinator. I remember one time Charlie Brighton was the director. I worked with Charlie on other TV stuff, and I got to. It was an episode where they're on a planet, and Koenig has to try to get up this mountain, and a lot of rocks fall on his head. So I'm looking at it. I'm saying, Charlie comes over. He says, "Yeah, I want you to be here." And then you start to go up, and all these rocks fall on your head. So I said, okay. I said, I said to the boys, now it's about 30 feet up, and they've got a skip, and it's load full of these rocks. So I shouted up, I said, can you, boys, what is it? When you drop it down, he said, polystyrene, it's only polystyrene. I said, okay. I said, can you drop one down? They went, I said, drop one down. So they went, and he went, hit the floor. I said, I'll do. He said, it's polystyrene. He said, yeah, but they're coated with plaster. So I said, thanks a lot. 30 feet. So I pick it up. I said, look, Charlie. He said, oh, it's nothing. He said, there's only polystyrene. He said, look. And he went, bang. And he went, oh. Dear old Charlie. Yeah, so I said, no, sort them out. I don't want the plaster ones. And that was that episode.
That sounds to me like Matter of Life and Death. Does anybody concur with that one? There's something similar in Metamorph, but that wasn't Koenig. But anyway, they both do it with Charlie Crichton. So.
Yeah.
On Breakaway, if you watch the episode, Paul appears as a technician with a red sleeve, mostly standing about in the background, so often quite a bit just behind Martin Landau when he's doing dialogue. But you have your own console that you go to and fiddle with some buttons. And
I was really good at that.
Yeah, and for quite a lot of the episode, when you know it's you, you're kind of wondering, what's Paul doing there? Why are you just doing extras work? And then we find out all shit kicks off. Breakaway happens, Paul gets flung back, and you land on the staircase leading up to the gallery. And it's a nice little sort of story arc for you in the episode that happens, because then afterwards, Dr. Russell comes in and she's looking after you. And you're all right, so that's good.
Yes, I survived that one.
Survived that one. But the part that you were playing in that, then from the next episode on, was taken by an extra called Andy Dempsey, who had your console.
Oh, right.
Because you then moved to doing, presumably, doubling for Martin.
Yes, yeah.
Who had the unique costume, so you couldn't be seen in shot.
Yes, yeah. And I also played, obviously, security guards and, you know.
Yeah.
And Alf Joint was a very good coordinator, so some of the things that we used to do was when somebody gets picked up and thrown, like I got picked up and thrown across the desk once, what you did is that you had a mini trampoline and you had a cable on your back, and when you jumped on the trampoline, and when you got at your height and you were at your lightest, if you like, they would then jerk you back. So it's a time in the cutting of the film that does it. So I jumped down, hit, and at that point I would get blown back, and that's what it would lighter to pull the body back on the cable from a mini trampoline. Other things we did was, like when you fall out into space, we couldn't get cables going down the tunnel where you go out into space, so we built the set upside down, and we put the crash mats on the bottom covered with black velvet, and we fell backwards or forwards or whatever you had to do down the tunnel. So when you looked at it, it looked as though you were just floating out into blackness. So we did all sorts of...
Yeah, there's a shot in War Games where you've got a yellow sleeve and you're doing exactly that, falling, being blown out into space, falling backwards. There's a sequence we spoke about before, about in End of Eternity with Peter Bowles, where there's a lot of excellent fight sequences that you're involved with. It grabs you by the neck, lifts you up into the air and so on. But there's a great sequence that I'd like you to break down for us, because although it looks very fluid on screen, it had to be shot in sequences, and it's you and a bunch of other security guards are having a fight with him. I think Alf is doubling for Peter Bowles.
Yes, Alf is doubling, yes. Colin Skeeping
does the stunt where he lifts him up, and he grabs you, pushes you down. Colin Skeeping jumps on your back and leaps at him. He grabs Skeeping and holds him up above his head, and then throws him. By that time, you've come round. I can't remember who's the other guy, the good-looking fellow with a big jaw.
No, that was me.
No. Got badly injured on Octopus.
Oh, Martin Gross.
Martin Gross. You're there. You've both come around the other side, and you're ready then to rush at Bowles. And he throws Colin Skeeping at you, and you all fall back. Now, obviously, even Peter Bowles couldn't lift Colin Skeeping up in the air. So, I'm sorry, even Alf Joint couldn't lift Colin. Never mind Peter Bowles. So how did that sequence work?
We did have him on wire. So Peter just picks him up and holds him, and then when we try to come forward, he threw. So it's really down to the wireman to allow him to swing. So he's on like a pendulum.
Yeah.
So Pete's just got to hold him back and then let him go, and then he swings, and then they drop him into us. So yeah, it's all done in cuts, as always. So yeah, each one would be choreographed to that particular shot. When he fought, I go flying back, and then Colin comes in, and yeah, it's all choreographed and then cut together afterwards.
Yeah. I know Alf choreographed that, but if you on the series, if you were doing something similar, how much time would you get beforehand to work that sort of complex stunt?
Yeah, you don't have too long. You didn't on Space 1999, but you would have a day of a recce to work it out, and maybe shoot it the next day, or you might have the morning to do it when you shoot it in the afternoon. But something like that, you would have set it up maybe 2 days before to make sure you've got the wires in the right place, and that would be set up. So you then go off and do something else while the wiremen are in, and you set it up. Then you come back with the stunt doubles and you rehearse the scene, and then you're ready for when the actors come in and the director comes in to shoot the whole thing.
Presumably something like that would have to be coordinated with the production designer as well, because a lot of those corridors in Moonbase Alpha had ceilings.
Yes.
But they would need to be removed for the wire.
Yes, yeah. And when we do get thrown back, it was a good solid set anyway. It wasn't like what was the TV series of Crossroads, yes, where all the sets were like that. It was fairly solid, but when we get picked up and thrown against them, they had to be made solid behind. So they were more stage weights, and they were packed behind, so it didn't wobble when you hit it. So, which, that didn't wobble, but you did when you hit it. It was like, so yeah.
I remember watching a stunt on Space Precinct once where they, I don't think that the walls were quite were solid enough to take it. They knew full well, and it was I'm trying to think of the episode. No, it's gone. One of the characters had to be smashed against the wall and sort of like beaten up against the wall, and rather than allow him to be smashed against the set, they put up a sort of like a flat or something, a piece of wood, and a guy just stood behind it and just held it, and that pretending that was the wall, because if that was solider than the wall of the set.
I know, it really is. Some of the cheaper budget movies you work on, you do have to go work with the art department and say, look, we're going to smash this wall. You better do something about it because we're going to take it out. And you can't half do a throw at a wall. You have to go for it. And you do work a lot of time with the art department to either make rubber, sort of softer, and make that. If a guy's got to be wired back into it, it's very heavy if it becomes a solid wall. But sometimes you can just, as long as you're within the wall itself, when you see the body hit, you don't notice that it moves as much as if you were on a wide shot and you could see it do that. But once you're in it and you've got the impact and the guy coming off, you don't really notice. But you do have to doctor all your, whether it's the floors, especially for actors. We've had rubber tiles made. When I did a film with Sylvester Stallone, we had a 40-foot tube, supposed to be a fan, and it was 15 feet wide, and because he was going to have to abseil down it, they made the whole thing 40 feet high out of rubber tiles. Well, he never touched it, and his stunt double did it anyway, but they spent a fortune on it because he was an actor, and they didn't want him to swing into it, or that he would get hurt. So you have to look at it for a stuntman or an actor. If it's an actor, then you really do have to pad up everything, either pad the actor or pad the floor or the wall, and you just have to look after the money. That's your job.
Was that Daylight?
Daylight, that was, yeah.
Which you were stunt coordinator on?
Yes.
Yeah. We'll come back to that tomorrow.
All right.
Staying with Space 1999, though, you said you doubled for Tony Anholt. That would have been all the way through the second series.
Yeah.
And by that time, you were stunt coordinating as well for that series.
So I would do both if it was necessary.
Yeah. There's an episode quite early on in that run of episodes, One Moment of Humanity, where you doubled for Lee Lawson.
Yes.
It seems as though I can't see you anywhere else. It seems that just for one shot, where Coney punches him.
Yes, probably. Yeah. That's not funny.
I think they're remembering what Lee Lawson is wearing in that episode.
Oh, I don't remember. What's he wearing?
Just gold metal straps,
right,
topless,
yes.
but just
That's
gold
right,
metal straps and shiny pants.
Yeah. And it was funny because Lee Lawson went to the same drama school that I went to, which was Mount View Theatre in London. And so he was like a year, 2 years before me. So it was quite funny to meet him again and on the set and actually double for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably just the one punch.
Yeah.
It's, you know, a punch is it's very important. It's not just the throwing of the punch; it's a reaction. If you don't get a reaction, you haven't got a punch. So, and I always say that the camera has only got one eye. So if you all shut one eye, you can't see how close my fist is to my face. So we work on that premise when we're doing fights, and I always say there's an invisible piece of string from the camera to the jaw. No matter where the camera is, can I just hit you?
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
So you have to break that piece of string for the camera. If the camera's up there, then you have to break it up there. If you break it down here, a normal punch, it would be a miss. So no matter where the camera is, if it's down there, I have to punch it down there. So, and it's a reaction of the guy who's being hit that will sell the punch. I can do a beautiful punch, but if he doesn't move, doesn't react, it's no good. So that's why you need a stunt coordinator to be on the set, even for a single punch, is to make it work. And sometimes you see, you know, it doesn't. And in the old black and white days, you know, they didn't really have a technique. They would just, you know, rough each other up and roll around a lot. Whereas, you know, John Wayne was starting to do the big punches. So we gradually learned how to sell a punch and to film a punch from any angle. So as long as you break that piece of string, you've got a hit.
Yeah, in that shot, it's the crucial point of the episode. I think you probably know it. Koenig loses his rag and finally gives Lee Lawson a smack on the chops, and that's what the androids have all been waiting for, and everybody's hanging on what's going to happen next. And Landau actually, so we have to see Landau do that.
Yes.
We're looking at you from behind. So how was he to work with as a physically when he had to be seen doing the action?
Yes, he didn't move too gracefully. He wasn't like a natural sort of physical guy, Martin, but he was there solid. When he did have to throw a punch, you could talk to him and he would throw it properly. But he was slightly awkward. Somehow he wasn't the best fluid mover. But yeah, he could throw a punch. So that's all we had to do really. The rest of the time he was running around.
Yeah. But even running around has its problems, doesn't it? Some people just can't do it for the camera.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, some of us laugh at Patrick McGowan in The Prisoner because he sort of flaps his arms around quite a bit when he runs. But he gets away with it. It's all right, that's him. But have you done things where an actor just really isn't looking right, running on screen, and you've had to do it for them?
Yes, you do get occasions. I've a couple of Americans, I can't remember who they were. I was out in Norway and just, I don't know, just didn't look butch, you know. They'd sort of, it was somehow just, you know, when you want to run and you're going somewhere, your head's down and you're going forward. And that doesn't really sell the big butch thing. So you do have to and the trouble is that when you're doubling somebody, you watch them how they go and you think, oh my God, I've got to run like that. So a lot of times you try to cut around it. But Patrick McNee, he used to throw a punch and it would be like that. He wasn't very good at throwing punches. So most of the time you try to get him to punch out of the screen. So you see him do that, but you don't see that. Roger was a very good puncher. Never liked falling over, but he would he would do a punch, and he'd always do that. You always see him put his left hand up and follow through that way.
Yeah.
Patrick McGowan, he was okay throwing punches, but he had a good stunt double in Frank Mayer.
Yeah.
Roger Moore you could never have Roger firing a gun in the same shot, because he'd go. So it was always, he'd bring up the gun and he'd go like that, but you'd never see the gun fire, because he'd go like that, it'd be fine. Put the sound on afterwards. But
he freely admitted that, though, didn't he?
Oh,
he was
yes,
absolutely terrified of guns.
Yeah, he was funny. Tell some stories about him tomorrow.
We'll talk a bit more about James Bond, Roger Moore, Timothy Dalton, Superman tomorrow. But I've just snuck a glance at my watch and I see that we're desperately running out of time. Have we got any time at all for a question from the floor? I think we'll do that since I haven't heard anything. You had your hand up first.
Two quick questions.
Sorry, can I just give you a microphone for you?
Two quick questions, hopefully. If you're providing a CV, is it more important to have the big films that you've been working on, or is it a list of stunts, or do you send a show reel, or do you just get passed on because people have worked with you before?
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in my career that I've never had I've never had an agent. So all my work has only come to me on recommendation. So I'd be on one movie and coming towards the end of the set, they'd phone me up and say, can you do the next Bond film, or can you do, Prince of Thieves or Aliens? So I've gone from one to the other purely on people just knowing my name and asking me to work on them. So I've never really had to put a CV out. The only time I ever went after a job, and I've never ever gone after a job, because I always felt that you're at a disadvantage if you go into the office and say, have you got a job for me? They say, well, we're only paying this. Whereas if they phone me up, I tell them this is what I need.
That's my next question. When you negotiate, when you get a job, do you get like a standard rate and then you add on for more dangerous things, or are you paid by the day? How does that work?
As a stunt performer, your coordinator will phone you up and say, we need you to do a double, we need you to fall down these stairs. You're on the equity minimum or just over, and you'll get £200 or £300 worth of falls or whatever. So that's the way you get your adjustments. As a stunt coordinator, you're taken on for the whole movie, and you get a weekly wage, and then that's up to you to negotiate whatever, equity have their minimums, which you would go under, and then you just how well you think, how much they will pay is what you can bring to the film, and if they think you're worth it, they will pay the right money.
We have just got time for one more question. I'll take this one here.
Thank you. When you were actually double for someone, did you also have to learn the gait as well, so that you looked?
Yes, it's very important. Is that you don't stand out from being them, so the audience will just accept your movement. So you do watch actors, and if you've got an older guy, you walk, more solid and try to copy their movements and the way they go. You can't have a young guy doubling for an older guy who's has broken ribs and he's got to run, whatever. You've got to run as though you've got broken ribs. You have to play that part. So a stuntman's job really is 80% acting, probably 10% doing stunts, and maybe only 5 or 6% really doing heavy stunts, where you're putting your body on the line. But I always say a stuntman is, we're all in the industry because we're creative, and the writer creates with a pen, a painter with a paintbrush. But if the pen breaks, they get a new one. If the paintbrush wears out, they get another one. We create with our bodies. We do falls and fights and whatever. It's our bodies that's doing it. That's what we're selling. And if we damage that, we don't get another one. So we're always very careful of how we look after ourselves, and that you don't do anything stupid. You're not there to hurt yourself. You're to put as much excitement onto the screen as possible, as safely as possible for yourself and other people.
Well, I'm afraid we have to leave it there for now. Tomorrow we'll learn how to walk like Peter Wingard. And we'll hear what Paul's got to tell us about some of the other things that he's done in his career. We'll talk about Aliens and the Bond films and Superman and working with Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah.
So on that cliffhanger, do you see what I did there? Because he did a film. We'll leave it there. If you please show your appreciation. Paul.